Good morning. That gets us warmed up for what we do next. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
I want to thank all of you for coming and being a part of our wonderful Easter worship service. We've got so many things planned. It's going to just be a wonderful hour that we get to be together in the midst of word and music and sharing for the celebration of the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. For those of you who are joining us online, a word of welcome to you as well. We're so glad that you've come to be with us on this Easter Sunday as well. And as we move into this hour this morning, we get the pleasure of not only getting the joy of the organ prelude, but our chancel choir ringers are going to be offering us up a prelude as well. So I'm going to invite us to first turn our attention to Joanne as she brings us into worship. Would you join with me in our opening prayer? You find it printed in our bulletin, and it's also up on the screen. Let's join our voices together. God, whom we call love, you welcome us into this time of worship and remind us that this world, this place, and this moment belong to you. You welcome us as strangers and travelers on a journey we do not always want or understand. You ask that we feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and comfort those who mourn. O God, we ask that as we learn and grow and attempt to serve you and others, we will be given the grace to love you and our neighbor in all that we do. We pray that at the end of each day, we can say that those to whom love is a stranger will have found in each of us generous friends. Amen. Our opening hymn this morning, if you'll grab your hymnals, is number 302. Number 302, Christ the Lord is risen today, verses 1 and 2. I'm going to invite us to stand as we are able to sing hymn number 302. Please be seated. We come into that time in our worship service. We get to share how our church is in action within the community. And we start with our senior pastor. That's the nicest introduction I have ever made, and you had to go and do that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Well, I had to turn around and see who you were talking about. So you all know that we've got something special planned next week. We figure that on Easter Sunday, if Jesus can get out of the tomb, the rest of us can get out of church the week after, okay? And so we're going out into the community. There's about 9 different places that we're going to be serving. Those of you who are going to help lead at different places, will you stand up? Mark, that's you. You're going to be at Habitat. Craig, you're at Big Garden. Matt, remind me. You're at Stevens Center. Jeff, where are you going to be? You're at Scatterjoy Acres. I'm going to be at Lutheran Family Services in the warehouse. Chris, where are you going to be? You're at Crestridge helping out. You're here because we're doing stuff. We're baking stuff here, cookies and muffins, and we're putting cards together here also. Matt's wife, Margot, is going to be in charge of the cards. We're going out and doing all of those things as not only an act of service, but an act of worship. Okay, because I've been asking this question over and over for the last months. What is the minimum you need to have something be worship? And I think I came up with an answer. The minimum you need is intention. Because whatever you can do can become worship if you intend it to be that way, and we're going to use our service in the community to do that. So not only are we going to build a house, we're going to worship as we build that house. Now, grab out your most spiritual device you have right now, your phone, and take a picture of the QR code. And if you don't know how to do that, look for somebody that looks 20 years younger than you. They'll show you how to do that. And then go through go through the slides and find the one and sign up. Because Cindy Grant and I are going to the warehouse at Lutheran Family Services together. And if you're not sure which one you want to do, choose that one, because I think it's going to be more than just the two of us.
Stephen Center's way cooler with me.
I like this, because if I hurt my back at the warehouse, I got 2 people preaching next week. All right. Gotcha. Oh, that's right. Chris will be.
Just to follow that up, good morning. We will also have childcare for toddlers 4 and under, because sometimes we find that it's hard to serve when we have a toddler in tow. So we will have quality, fantastic, amazing, I'm buttering her up, folks here to help with that. That would be Miss Shirley. And so you really should have stood up, because you're doing an amazing act of service. Yes, exactly. So also you can sign up your kids for that too, because we need to know how many children will be there, or grandchildren, so that we have enough caregivers for them.
2 final announcements. That same day, next Sunday, after you have worshiped and worked and all of that wonderful stuff, we're having trivia night here. We're inviting a lot of our friends from other faith communities. So for trivia, you can be a team or an individual. It doesn't matter. Come, we're going to have a good time. There's going to be some finger foods. It'll just be a blast. So come back for that, 6:30 to 8:30 next Sunday night. And finally, today's your last opportunity to be supportive of the youth through the Flower fundraiser. Forms are in the back, so sign up for that, and all your proceeds go to help our young people. Thank you.
I'm going to keep that mic. Thank you. You will find on the back of our bulletin this week's worth of activities. I hope that you will take a moment to note all of them, plan to come and be with us. And again, find that QR code, go online. For those of you who are there, go ahead and scan that. You'll find if you didn't get all the announcements written down because of all of the things we were saying in the midst of the day of service, please be sure to do that. Any other announcements we need to share with one another this morning? If not, let's take a moment then to share the joys and the concerns that are in our hearts and that are on our minds as we come into this time of prayer. And I would ask, what joys would we share with each other today? What joys do we have? Oh, I'm in the back. See, it's easier when I got little kids running these around. I don't have to run near as far.
ACT scores came out on Friday, and I got a 32.
Little 5, don't leave me hanging. 32, that doubles Pastor Marshall's ACT score.
It's true.
A few weeks ago, I asked you all for prayers for my grandson Calvin, who's 5 years old and has been having some seizures. And I'm happy to report he's been to Children's, seen the neurologist, they've done testing. He does not have epilepsy. This is something that he'll outgrow. Thank you so much for your prayers.
Excellent.
God is good all the time.
Amen. Other joys. Okay, yeah. I think a dad's going to do some bragging. No,
she
I
can
tried.
do her own. She can do
She
her
can
own.
do her own bragging. All right.
I mean, not to disparage being in a warehouse next week, but I am really joyful that I'm going to be at Scatterjoy Acres with animals and joy, and it's going to be great. Not that it's a competition, but I am looking to have more people there than anywhere else, frankly. I'll take on all the sponsors. And so I have sent out a few invites. The youth have been there several times. Young families have been there several times. It is a lot of fun, so that's my joy.
That's your joy, and it is a joy. There you go.
I have my grandparents all the way from Indiana staying with us for Easter this weekend.
That is so awesome. Welcome. Yeah, it's a short drive from Indiana, right? Just a couple minutes, right? A little commute. Well, we're glad to have you here. Other joys as we celebrate Easter. How about concerns? Any concerns that we would share with one another today that we could pray with and for one another today? If not, all right, let's just take a moment then. Center in and be in our own moment of attitude of meditation to lift up the joys, the concerns that are in our hearts and our minds up to God. After that, I will offer up a pastoral prayer, and as is our tradition, we will take that moment to join our voices together in that which Jesus taught us. So, would you join with me now in this moment of prayer? God of the sunrise, God of the empty tomb, God of the gift of Jesus, the gift of peace, the gift of joy, gracious God, you give us the gift of salvation. And it's in this day that we gather together and we all look in to see what each of us sees in our own faith, in our own moment, to recognize you, Jesus, having come and saved each one of us. We are so thankful for the joys, gracious God, that we have the opportunity to share with one another. The concerns that are in our hearts, that are on our minds, and we lift them to you also, gracious God. In the midst of the Easter celebration, as we each cheer our own hosannas, the empty tomb and the open gates to heaven. Almighty Jesus, we thank you for this, for your preaching, for your teaching, and the leading us in this prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
This is a time for the kids to come up. If there are kids here, you can come up and we're going to have a little conversation. Come sit with me. I promise I don't bite. I'm really nice. Most kids say that anyways. Come on up. Come sit right here. Hi, Lucas. Hi. Good morning. Happy Easter. Did you guys have an Easter basket this morning? Yeah? Anything yummy in it? Yes. What was your favorite?
Mine consisted of mainly chocolate.
Chocolate, of course. Who can resist chocolate? You haven't opened yours yet? When you get home, maybe? Yeah, got something to look forward to then, right? Do you guys know what this is? Caterpillar, exactly right. A caterpillar. Do you know what kind of caterpillar it might be?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a yellow spot.
You're close. It is a monarch caterpillar. Yeah. And you know, when butterflies lay their eggs, they lay them on leaves, right? And then the caterpillars get a little bigger and they munch the leaves, right? And then what happens? Any ideas?
They get a cool chrysalis.
That's right. They go into a chrysalis. You want to see if this caterpillar does that too? I think it might. Look at this. Here is our chrysalis. And they hang from like a branch, don't they? On maybe a milkweed, because that's their favorite food. Monarchs' favorite food is a milkweed. And do you know why they call it a monarch? Do you see this little stripe right here? It's kind of golden, right? On a real chrysalis, it's also golden. And do you know what that word monarch means? No. It means king or like a ruler. And kings and rulers often have lots of gold, right? So that's kind of why I think they named it a monarch, because it had a gold stripe. Well, when you see a chrysalis hanging, do you mess with it? No, why not?
No. I would take the stick off and raise it as a pet.
Yeah, you could, if you took the whole stick, you could put it in a butterfly cage, right? But if we mess with it, it doesn't get to hatch into a butterfly yet, does it? So after a little while, what happens? It starts to wiggle and move. And what happens? Ta-da-da! Look at that! A butterfly! Do you see its eyes? And its long tongue for drinking nectar from flowers. So do you have any idea why we're talking about butterflies today? No, well, today is Easter, right? And this is the day that we remember that when Jesus was on the cross, he went into the tomb and then he rose again. Kind of like went from a caterpillar to the chrysalis to a new creation, right? So when we think about who Jesus is and what he taught, if we think about the fact that he can help us, if we choose to follow him, he can help us be new creation, like just in our choices and the things that we do. Now I want to show you some pictures of some caterpillars and some butterflies and moths, how they go from something interesting to something amazing. Okay, you ready? Look at the screen right up here. Look at that. That is just a normal looking caterpillar, isn't it? And it becomes a black swallowtail. Look at the next one. Ooh, it's spiky and hairy. And it turns into a blue morpho butterfly. What about the next one? Ooh, that one's a little creepy, isn't it? But look, it turns into a Barum moth. Brahmin. Ooh, and this one's white and yellow. This one's really cool. It's a glasswing butterfly. You can actually see through their wings. They're not hollow. There's something actually there, but you can see through it. Oh, that one kind of looks like a snake, doesn't it? Those are just spots on the back. They kind of trick the birds so the birds don't eat them. They look like a snake, but it turns into a spice bush swallowtail. Let's look at the next one. That one looks kind of creepy, too. You're right, they scare off other things. Let's see what it turns into. An Atticus atlas moth. What's next? Oh, and this is the one we were just looking at. What was it called? A monarch. Monarch, right? And then there's the chrysalis. You see the gold stripe? And there's one there that has kind of wings showing through because it's almost ready to hatch. And let's see what happens. It's wiggling and wiggling. Oh, there it is. There's the monarch butterfly, just like the one we had. It has a long, long tongue, just like this one. What did you guys think? Is that kind of cool? Yeah. So when I do children's moments with all the kids, we say a little prayer. And you may not know it yet, but you can kind of follow along with me. And if you guys know the children's prayer, you can say it with us too. It goes like this. God, thank you for your great love. Help my ears to hear your words. Help my mouth to speak your kindness. Help my hands to serve my neighbors. Help me to trust you always. God, thank you for your great love. Amen. So now is the time when you can go back to sit with your mom and dad in your seats. Thank you for coming and chatting with me today. Awesome. So the last couple weeks, the kids have been collecting. Lucas, you can go sit right over there with Mama. There she is. Good job. Kids have been collecting an offering for a Lenten Project, and this was their last Sunday. They needed to just about $100 to complete their goal, which was above and beyond the original goal. And they made it in the first service. $3,000 for Heifer International, which is really, really exciting. But we wanted to show you a little thank you video that Heifer sent us to thank us for the money we gave them. So here it is.
Hello, I'm Hilary Hadigan, Heifer's Chief of Mission Effectiveness. As a partner in Hope, you are making a life-changing commitment to the families around the world who Heifer works with. For myself, and for our staff, and for those families, I want to say thank you. I know firsthand the transformative power of the gifts that you have shared. With your support, we're able to remove barriers of women's economic empowerment, build sustainable businesses that benefit families today and are building a future. Again, thank you. You're part of bringing dignity and hope to the communities that we work with. We cannot do the work we do without your support, and you should be proud of your participation in Partners in Hope.
Christ the Lord is risen, breaking death's dark prison. Hallelujah, hallelujah, the Lord is risen. He that brought creation now hath brought salvation. Sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah, Christ is risen today. Raise your voice in singing, grateful anthems ringing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, the Lord is risen. Leave all care and sadness, sing with joy and gladness. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen today. Christ the Lord is risen today. Hallelujah. Earth and heaven in chorus say, hallelujah. Raise your joys and our death victorious. Alleluia, alleluia, the Lord is risen. Tell the wondrous story, give him praise and glory. Sing alleluia, sing alleluia, Christ is risen. Alleluia, Christ is risen. Alleluia, Christ is risen. Alleluia.
Our thanks to Champion Choir, our thanks to Bell Choir for the beautiful music that we have had today. But now is our opportunity. Let's stand up. Let's greet each other, shall we? I'm going to invite everybody to find their way back to their seats. Or as I shared at first service, maybe it's not the seat you started in. Maybe it's a seat you found that you just liked, Surely you might as well just don't even walk that way. Walk this way. Don't make me stand here by myself for too long, please. It gets lonely up here when you're by your lonely, very lonely. Here, I'm going to give you that. I'm going to hand you that. Thank you, ma'am.
Our scripture for this blessed Easter morning, Luke 24. But on the first day of the week at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they did not find the body.
Dramatic pause.
Thank you. Good. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he is risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee. Must be." Okay. He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again. Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. Hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to the church. Thanks be to God.
So, I didn't do this at the first service. I'm going to have to clean things up next week. I really need to take a moment to thank the staff here yesterday. If you had a chance to be here yesterday morning, we had about 200 people out on the lawn for the Easter egg hunt yesterday morning. We figure about 125 kids and about 75 adults. And of the 200 that were out there, about 192 of them wandered into the building and then filled up the great room and spent the next 2 hours just doing crafts and all of that. I think the last guests were leaving the building about 11:30, and the kids did all sorts of stuff. And that work, you won't be surprised to hear, had nothing to do with me. That success was all on because of the work Sarah Archer and Chris Archer and volunteers and the Children and Youth Committee do. And so Shirley and Lois and I'm going to get it, Jeff and Rachel made one of the nicest Easter bunnies we've ever had. And, folk, and I know I'm missing people, and I apologize for that. But it was a wonderful day that we don't always get to see the results of that effort at this service, because it's at the first service where we have about 20 little kids that sit up here and listen to the children's sermon. So thank you for all of the support that you give that effort, even though you don't always see the results of that. So, have you ever gotten so interested in reading a story that you don't want to put the book down? Anybody? Or is that just, all right, got it, okay. Have you ever been in one of those moments where you're telling a story or reading a familiar story to a child or somebody younger, and for some reason you want to stop in the middle of the story and they won't let you stop? Right? It's like it's just wrong to stop and leave, for me it was like the Three Billy Goats Gruff or, Goldilocks. You could not leave Goldilocks in the medium-sized bed. You just could not do that. It's as if the character would get stuck and people would not know what would happen unless you told the rest of the story. Sometimes I think that's the way Easter Sunday morning works. If we didn't get up here and tell the story of the women going to the tomb and what they found, Jesus wouldn't get out of the tomb. We have to tell that story. And yet sometimes it gets referred to like the other disciples thought of what the women were saying, that it's just an idle tale. On Tuesdays, I've said this a number of times, we get this group of people that come together and we finish the sermon from the week before. That's the chance where they have to go, that really didn't make sense. What were you trying to say? Or we read the passage and they give their thoughts about, what's coming up for the week ahead. We read this passage this past week, and one of the first questions, right after we got done reading it, the question was, did that really happen? And I wish you could have been there. It was one of the finest moments that I've ever had as a pastor. They asked the question, I bowed my head for a little bit, I took a deep breath, I opened my mouth, and I avoided the question. That was good. Those of you who were there on Tuesdays, right? Just stepped right to the side and said, are there any other questions people would like to ask? Partly in my defense, I'm not sure what's being referred to. What did that really happen? Did that really happen that the women were the only one that went there and came back and told the stories? Even Peter went there later. Peter went, looked around, went, they were right. Went home and didn't say a dang thing. Right? Was it really true that there were two guys in white that appeared in their midst? Who were the guys? Of course, I assumed, maybe like you assumed, that the real question was, when the question was asked, did that really happen, was there really no body in that tomb? Is that really what happened? You know, and I've given that a lot of thought, and frankly, I don't know. I don't know. And it's not really a question that I want to play with. Did that happen? I really don't care if it did happen. What I am very interested in is, does it happen? Does it happen? Because I'm convinced that if Jesus was anything, one of the things Jesus was human. Okay? And he died. He died on the cross. And he died on the cross because people who had the power to kill him killed him. And people that didn't want him to die did not have enough power to save him. Now some of that came because they were the followers and they just couldn't stand up to the army. They couldn't stand up to the forces that Pilate had gathered around. Others may have been able to make a difference, but they were afraid. They were afraid because there weren't enough of them, or they were afraid because they had already made their peace with the way life was, and they didn't want to jeopardize that. Sometimes people like me, preacher people like me, we get a little hard on the faithful Jewish community that was gathered around Jesus at the time. And we create out of them a foil that we can tell the sermon against. When in reality, who they were was just regular everyday people that were trying to figure out how to live and how to go on living. And they had figured out a way to make peace with the Roman occupation. And in doing so, they didn't want to jeopardize that, because if they jeopardized it, lots of people were going to die. And in fact, it's only about within 40 years after Jesus' death that they have a rebellion, and many thousands of people die. They're afraid. And yet that's not where the story ends. You see, I don't know about you, but the times when I want to know if this does happen are those moments where the things in my life, well, they begin to go in directions that I don't want them to go. Have any of you ever had this experience where your body betrays you and begins to hurt in ways you never thought possible, and it did not ask your permission to do that? Yeah. And then you got to figure out, what are you going to do now? How are you going to live with this? Or the moments where you find yourself in grief that you never expected. Someone has died. Someone has died too young. Someone has died that you hadn't yet begun to imagine how you were going to live without them. You lost your job. The job you thought was going to be the job you'd have forever, all of a sudden is no longer your job, and you don't know what the next step's going to be. You had a dream. You wanted to be something other than what you find yourself being that day. And so the question becomes, at that moment where, on that moment that is like Good Friday for us, can we really imagine that there's something on the other side? And sometimes people like me, I'll say things, when I'm at my worst, I'll say things like, oh, don't worry. Time heals all wounds. There's only one or two more worthless things that I can say at that moment. Or I might try to be better, and I'll say things like, please be kind to yourself, because it's going to be a difficult time. Please know that if you're grieving and you feel crazy, step back and take comfort, because if you feel crazy, you're absolutely normal. Because grief causes us to be a bit crazy. I'll say those things as if, is if it's just going to take a bit. It's just going to take a bit, and it'll all be okay. And I don't want it to be okay. I want it to be different. I want it to be more. I want to imagine that through the worst part of whatever my life is, there's someplace on the other side where love and grace and hope and forgiveness make my life anew. I want to imagine that we are not telling a story about what did happen on Easter Sunday morning, but what does happen as a part of our life in God's love. It ain't easy. Sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes we get stuck trying to go to that next moment where God's love in our lives reshapes our dreams, our hopes, our faith, our understanding of who we are, our understanding of what might be next. Folk, what I can tell you for sure this morning is this, is that the story of faith is not stuck in the middle of this gospel lesson we had. It is not an idle tale. We may not fully understand it, but it is not a tale that is meaningless or can be ignored. It is a story that pulls all of us into a future of hope and love that we have not yet experienced or imagined, and yet is always present. This week, there are going to be 100 things that make you go, I don't think the pastor knew what he's talking about. Because what I'm going through right now makes no sense. Okay. Step back. Let's come at it again in the knowledge of the faith and the hope and the love that abide in God and abide in us. Amen. I'm looking, because when we got music, I always end up skipping the music, which I don't want to do. As we get ready for communion, let me remind you of a few things that you already know. This sacrament that we will share in is not a sacrament that's for the United Methodist table. It's for everybody. So if you're a guest here and you've never been here before and you want to come for communion, come. If you've been here 100 times and you're not sure you want to come, that's okay. It's a table that you come to receive God's grace. Now, if you're not able today to get up and come, let us know. We'll bring communion to you. Okay? Let us prepare our hearts and our minds. At this table, we give thanks for the wonderful gift of reflective awareness that allows us to recognize and name the presence of the Creator Spirit of God that we find all around us. Everything we have, everything we see, everything we do, everyone we love, and everyone who loves us reveals the sustaining presence of God. We give thanks for Jesus of Nazareth, who loved so greatly and taught so clearly and courageously that he was able to set people free from images and ideas and religious practices that bound them into fear and a false sense of separation from the Spirit of life. From him we learn how loving is a sharing in the life of the Spirit of God. In him we see the Spirit of life challenging all of us to make the presence of God on earth more visible. We remember the night he died, the night before he died, when he took bread. He gave thanks for everything he had, and he broke the bread. He shared it with his friends, asking them to remember his total surrender to the Spirit of life and love and his enduring love for each of them. We take this bread and eat it mindful of the Spirit at work in our lives, in the ordinary, in the everyday, in our desire to love as generously as Jesus loved us. Likewise, knowing that his life was to be poured out, Jesus shared a cup of wine with his friends. We drink now mindful of our bonding with Jesus and with all people through the Spirit at work in our lives. We are grateful for who we are and for whose we are and for each other. We believe that we are blessed and that through this meal, we become a blessing to others. May we truly be the body of Christ in all that we do. Amen. Will those of you who are going to help serve communion please come forward? Thanks. If it is important or helpful for you to take bread that is gluten-free, please let us know because we have that available. Shirley, come here. I'm going to hold this. Would you just hold this? Thank you. Thank you. Please come. Did everyone receive communion that wanted to receive? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to sing "Christ is Alive" and then join in the benediction. And then we have been singing together "Shalom" to help us remember the people in Ukraine and our connection with the Jewish community here in town and there also. And then we'll just sit for a bit and listen to the postlude. And after that, it's time to greet each other and laugh together and see folk that see family that have come from out of town that we haven't seen for a long time. Let's stand and sing verses 1 and 5 of hymn number 318. Our benediction together. It's up on the screen. Now, let us go in peace to live a faith that matters, to grow in the love of God, and to serve wherever we are led. Amen.